Hi, this is Bonnie, and today we're going to do some stamping on toilet tissue. It's going to be a little bit different than what I've done before, but I think that you might like this technique, and we'll see how it ends up on a card. So to start with, there is going to be some time involved, but we won't have to worry so much, or you won't have to worry so much, because I'll be able to stop and start and come back after it's dried. So what you are going to need is you're going to need a stamp that will leave it a little bit of an impression. And then you're also going to need some like a toilet tissue. And you're going to need, just going to need some toilet tissue. And you're going to need some paper towels, kitchen towels. And you're also going to need an absorbent cloth. I am using a washcloth, or you could use a kitchen towel. And I am also going to be using some Distress Oxide, and this one is Evergreen Bough, and I'm also going to be using my one of the blending brushes. And you're also going to need a cup of water. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take, there's two actually. You have to make sure you can cover up your stamp that you're going to be using. And I am going to be using the brand new Fairy Hugs Dragon called, I think it's Zuli, and it's Z-U-L-I, and I'll have all those, everything I'm using, I'll have it down below in the description box. That's who I'm using. He's brand new into the Fairy Hugs store and Fairy Stamper store as well. So this is the stamp I'm going to be using, and I just need to make sure that my toilet paper is going to be covering whatever I'm going to be doing. So I actually am using, there's 2 sheets in each one depending on what size you have, I guess, and I used 5 layers of this. Now the first thing I'm going to do to this, once I've torn those off, I have 5 layers like I said, I am going to be putting on the Distress Oxide. And I'm just going to lightly brush that across, not hard or anything, just lightly. Now what's cool about this is the Distress Oxide, it reacts to water, and we're going to be using water. So if you notice when I showed you my sample, there was some different color gradations, which is what's really cool about Distress Oxide. So that's all you're really going to need. It's not very much. And like I said, I'm going to show you this again. You can see how the outsides got a little bit of the yellow to it. I don't know that I'm going to end up keeping that when I finish, but I just wanted to show you how cool that is because of the Distress Oxide. So the next thing I'm going to do is I needed a stamp platform, and I did not have one where I'm at right now that was big enough. So I am using just one of my Spellbinders plates from my die cutting machine, but you can use anything that will just hold it down. And then I'm going to be putting that directly on top, and if you want to make sure that you have it centered the way you want to, you can turn it back over and check that out. Okay, it's really a pretty simple process. The longest part is just waiting for the paper to dry. So the next thing you're going to do is take your water, and you're just going to carefully pour that on top so it gets saturated. My very first one that I did, I used 8 layers, and I found that I thought it was too many, so I went to 5. And you just want to make sure, oops, it's going to run right off, that it gets wet. And I think we did a pretty good job there. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your absorbent towel, kitchen towel or washcloth, whatever you have, and just soak up that water. I'm going to make sure I got it. I don't know if I got very much on his tail. I'm going to add a little bit more, just a tad bit more to that tail. Okay. because you can feel once you press down on it where the stamp is located. And you can see that it's turning a little bit of color through. All right, so then after you've done this, to absorb more, just take your kitchen paper towels and absorb more of that. It just helps it to dry quicker by absorbing as much of the water as you can. We just want to make sure we get a good impression. I'm going to do that one more time. And then I'm going to give you a peek as to what it's going to look like. And I just have to let it dry. I let mine dry overnight. I am sure you can use a heat gun if you are in a hurry. I have not done that. Okay, let's take a look and see what we've got. You just want to take that off carefully. And that's the impression that we have. It's really nice. Now, you can get stamps that have a little bit more detail if you want, and it'll give you a little bit more impression. So what I do next is I actually have a cookie rack, and I'm going to set this so that the air can get up underneath it, and I'm going to let that dry. So I'm just showing you again how that works. I think this one, because I didn't use as much paper, toilet paper, it gave me a little bit more of an impression. So I really like that. And I will be able to line up my stamp and stamp on top of that once this dries. So I'll be back once this dries. Okay, it's not thoroughly dried, but I wanted to show you how I put it on my cookie sheet. And I've actually got it clothespinned, and I did a little bit of drying to speed up the process. It's going to still take a little bit of time, but I wanted to show you how I just used my heat gun and I blew on this. I'm not going to do it because it's too loud, but I blew on this side, and then I also blew underneath. So if you wanted to make your process go a little bit faster, you can actually blow dry it with your heat gun. And I'm going to let mine set. I did get it a little bit of the dampness away, but I'm going to wait because I am going to be stamping on this, and it needs to be dry, and I need to be able to have more of a firmer surface. Okay, so it is dry enough. I did use a little bit of my heat gun to dry it so I could get the film done or the video done quicker. And what I'm going to show you is that, like I told you, there is like 5 layers. I am just going to pick up the top 2 layers. You can still see I can make another one at the same time if I want to. It just doesn't have as much of the color. So this is what I'm going to be using to stamp on. And I'm going to go ahead and layer that down and use some of my washi tape too. Remember, if you use the washi tape, it will pull up some of the paper, so put it where it won't matter. And that should work, that process. And then what I do is I take the film like you usually do from your stamping, and I line that up to exactly where that was. And you can see the indentation so that you will know where to put that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the stamp directly on top. Okay. And I'm just going to be using VersaFine Clear Nocturne. And I'm going to have to stamp it a couple of times because when I did my first one, I had to stamp it a couple of times because of the absorbency and because probably I need to ink up my ink pad a little bit better because I used it a lot last week. So I think it's probably lacking in ink. So let's see if we can do this. If not, I might have to ink up my pad, and I will do that if that's what I need to do. Okay. And the other thing nice about the VersaFine Clear, even if this is slightly damp, it won't hurt the ink at all, but it doesn't appear to be damp. And you can see how the Oxide did color a little bit to the side. Okay. You can see it's a little bit, it's gonna have to be inked up more. I'm gonna go ahead and ink up my pad and I'm gonna be right back. All right, so I've got my ink pad refilled better. So I should have a little bit more ink to work with. It really makes a difference. I've noticed how much ink you have on your pad. All right, we're gonna give that another try. Okay. That works much better. I'm going to give it just one more inking, I think. And again, it's because it is an absorbent paper. And then the next thing that I do is I do use clear embossing powder to seal that. There we go. That's exactly what we want. And I'm going to go ahead and put some clear embossing powder on that. Okay, so there's one thing I want to show you when you're using toilet paper or any lightweight paper of any kind and you have a heat gun. I want you to see one of the tips that I do is I actually put a piece of cardstock behind so that it doesn't blow away, and I use a clothespin or I use tweezers to hold this. I am going to go ahead and move my work mat away so that it doesn't get the heat on it. I'm going to go ahead and put that light there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat gun on, and I'm going to go ahead and mute that part so you don't have to listen to it, but you can just watch. Okay, so the next step is to prepare this so that I can put it on my card, which is what I'm planning to do with it. And all you want to do is you want to go around and just trim, but you want to leave, I don't know, what is that, about a ½ inch around the outside. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to go ahead and do that, but you want to leave about a ½ inch around the outside. Then you're going to do is take some water and a brush, and you're just going to get the edge, not a lot. I have a little bit there, more than what I want, but just want to get the edge of it a little bit wet, just a tad bit. And then what you're going to do is come back with your thumb and just pull some of that away so that you have more of a an edge that's not exactly perfect, but one that's more of a rough edge. It's kind of like what people will do with rice paper. They just get a little bit of it wet and then they pull it away. So that's like what I'm going to be doing all the way around. I'm just going to get that just a tad bit wet and then come back with my thumb and pull just a little bit of that away, just so that it's not really a perfect line, like I said, if you can see. So that's what I'm going for. You can make that as close as you want, but you got to be a little bit careful because you really don't want to get your embossing part too wet. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do that all the way around, and then I'll be back. All right, so I have my little dragon all ready to be put on a card. And I wanted to share with you 4 new papers that Fairy Hugs Fairy Stamper has in their store. And these are the new papers. I'm going to show each one to you. I don't know what the names of these are yet. I just know that they are new papers. They should be in the store. As you are watching this, they should have been in the store this past weekend. This one was created using the stencil that Fairy Hugs has called Sticks. This paper was created using the stencil Woody, the Fairy Hugs stencil Woody. And this paper was created using this Fairy Hug stencil Galaxy. So these are 4 papers that are already created for you to use just as they are. And so I am going to be using this one right here that has the Galaxy stencil on it. And I am also going to be using a new sentiment. It's called With Love at Christmas. And that is going to go right there. I'm going to get this all set up because Zuli is going to be on here, just like that. So we're going to go ahead and get that stamped. I'm going to be using Nocturne again. What I really like about the dragon is he can be holding anything, or he can be like referring to something, but he can usually be holding things, and that's what makes him kind of fun. There's also a new stamp that there's a little fairy that can be standing in his hands and decorating a tree. I believe her name is Laura, and she's in the store now too. So I've got that all stamped. I'm going to go ahead and emboss that, and then I'm going to be coming back with the dragon. All right, I just added a little bit of Distress Collage Medium to the back of the dragon so that it will adhere. You have to be careful because it does have, it is water-based, I think, and obviously this will respond to that, and we have to be really careful adding that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that over and set that straight away on the card. And that should dry just like any other embellishment that you would use. You need to be careful with. It seems to work just fine to use the collage medium. So that's how that's going to go on. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to be cutting out some snowflakes to add to this card. Okay, so I am finishing up with the card. It almost started to look, it looks a little bit like flannel, and what I did is I added a little bit of the Distress Collage Medium to the edges, and then I added a little bit of the Fine Detail Silver embossing powder to give it even more of a distressed type of a look. And I'm going to be using the silver looking gems to go inside of the snowflakes to match up with the silver on around the dragon. And then I will be done. I might add a little bit more once I put it on the card, but for now this is the basic look for the card. I will have, like I said, even the snowflakes. Those are a 2D design snowflake that I am using, and I will have that link also below. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up. I'm going to add a little bit more embellishments, but that's pretty much what the card is going to be looking like. Thanks so much for stopping by, and don't forget that you can go ahead and share your cards or enter our challenge at Fairy Stamper Hugs, and I have, like I said, all the links below. Thanks for stopping by.